Hi, Achim from InnerSpace Explorers. Today is part 3 of the Dräger conversion video series, and beside I wanted to show you that the tank finally arrived and how the final assembly looks. I would like to go over a couple of questions that people asked. So this is basically answering questions that came up during the presentation of the last 2 videos. So let's get started, but before I just get this ready. Alright, here we are. So before we start, I just wanted to show you one of the new merch t-shirts. If you like the design and want one of these, check out the YouTube store, or actually in the video description there is a link to the actual store where you can find these designs. Second thing, I got a present, fan mail. So one of you guys made the effort and made this epic t-shirt for me. Super nice design, and sent it to me. I really appreciate it, I love it, thank you very much. And yeah, if you want to send me something, there is also in the video description is the address where you can send stuff to. Thanks again, love it. Alright, back to the rebreather. I got tons of questions on the last 2 videos. The second one I just uploaded today, but it was pre-uploaded on Patreon and already there was a ton of questions coming in, so I thought it's a good idea to first of all show you the thing now is the proper tank and the valve, the way I wanted it, so I have a flat surface, and then I reach back, I can grab that from underneath. I couldn't find one with the knob on the side, but actually on the bottom is even better, streamlined design, so I think you can really see that this is a nice and compact unit now. So let's go through these questions. So the first question I got was, somebody was asking, I have a Dolphin rebreather, and is it a good idea to convert that in the same way? Answer is no. Generally speaking, these semi-closed rebreathers are kind of outdated. There was this idea in the late 90s where like, yeah, this will be the next hot thing, but obviously it wasn't. So they didn't sell very well, and I mean, you don't see anybody using them today. I mean, obviously there might be a few people, but it's nothing that you occasionally see on the dive site like a regular thing. Nevertheless, the ray was very limited, very weird unit, so to speak, only using 50%, limiting itself to 22 meters. There was no real benefit, I mean, except from having warm, wet gas, so to speak, and obviously less bubbles than open circuit. The effort it took for a 22 meter dive, everybody just took a 80 cubic feet scuba tank and jumped in. So the Dolphin or the Atlantis were way more capable units, so it's still a relatively decent rebreather. So I personally wouldn't convert it into an oxygen rebreather. Also scrubber size, etc. It's basically too much for an oxygen rebreather. Technically, yes, of course you can do that, but I don't think it makes too much sense, especially as these units still have some sort of value. Just after I read the question, I checked on eBay worldwide, and there's actually a few flying around, and they still sell for relatively reasonable prices. So I personally wouldn't do it. Technically spoken, yes, you can. The next thing I received as a question was a few people that said, hey, why instead of modifying this rebreather, why do you not build your own? In fact, I have. I built quite a few oxygen rebreathers myself over the years, and this will be actually a topic for a couple of videos. A lot of people asked this question, and a lot of people asked like, hey, go back into your basement and show us stuff that you do. So I will do this. There's a few rebreathers I built and constructed and developed, and there's still prototypes flying around in the basement, so there will be more of this coming. I just basically have to get all the pieces back together, because I'm actually not diving any of these projects and you take a piece out, use it for something else, etc. But they're all diveable, and if this is what you guys like, no problem at all. So I'll walk you through these rebreathers, make a nice video of each of them and describe in detail what I did, why I did it, and maybe even get them back in the water and show you how they perform. So the next question was, and that came a lot, is this unit limited to 6 meters? Yes and no. By the book, yes, it is limited to 6 meters. It's an oxygen rebreather, 100% oxygen, maximum PO2 of 1.6. Yes, it's limited to 6 meters. Reality? No. The reason I'm a bit careful with this is because obviously I don't want anybody to say, Achim said in the video it's not limited to 6 meters, let's go deeper. That's generally spoken not a good idea, but you have to understand how the oxygen rebreather works. In fact, also there's 100% oxygen in this bottle, and I'm just going over this briefly because I obviously don't want to teach an oxygen rebreather course in this video. But the content or the gas content you have in your lungs is never 100%. That's simply not possible. So I want to give you a good example. So in the beginning, when I started playing around with oxygen rebreathers, especially building them, I did a lot of testing, and we put oxygen sensors in some of the units that we built, and you flush the unit 3 times. I went into a pool, went down to 5 meters, and just sat down the bottom, breathing in and out, just substituting the oxygen that obviously I metabolized. And so just what the volume, just the reduction of the volume, I added the oxygen. After 60 minutes, I was down to 56%, so nitrox 56. So you may wonder, okay, but then what was the rest? Well, the rest is nitrogen, and it's the nitrogen that comes from the body. Think about it as decompression. You're on deco, you have a lot of saturation, or saturated gas in your body, you're breathing 100% oxygen, open circuit, to have this washout effect. It's not exactly the same, but it's a very similar thing. So obviously there's kind of diluent coming from your body and diluting the gas, so it's not 100% anymore. For that reason, theoretically spoken, yes, you can. If you put an oxygen measuring device in one of these units, which we could do here theoretically, you would realize that you basically, except from just entering the water when you freshly flushed the unit, you will not go over 80%. So with 80%, theoretically, yes, you can go to 10 meters. The thing is, you can't read it. So by the book, yes, the limit is 6 meters. In reality, if you're in the water, you go in, you dive for a couple of minutes, and you make like an excursion to 10 meters, check something out, go back up to 6 meters, it's no drama. As you don't have an oxygen measuring device, I obviously do not recommend that in this video. I hope that's clear. Which brings me to the next point. A lot of people came up as like, oh, it's a rebreather, why do you not have an oxygen measuring device on that, an oximeter or whatever, oxygauge? Simply because I don't need it. And again, there's a couple of things on it. First of all, if you want to measure the oxygen precisely, like you do in a mixed gas rebreather, you need at least 3 cells. The reason for that is that the cell is in an environment where it shouldn't be. It's wet, it's humid, it's warm. Actually, there's different temperatures, cold water outside, warm gas inside, etc. So that's basically what the manufacturer of the cells say, don't put it there. So bluntly said, the results these cells give are questionable, and you should question them. So if I have 3 cells, obviously I have like an intermediate value. So one says 1.1, one says 1.2, one says 1.3, just as an example. So I can assume that 1.2 is pretty much good, right? It's like the middle of the 3. Please, all the CCR divers, don't jump on that and, oh, this is wrong. Of course, today the cells get better, the computers get better. Yeah, it's just, I want to give you the general idea. You would not dive a rebreather and rely on one single oxygen cell to tell you your gas is okay or not. So all these rebreathers, oxygen rebreathers that have the possibility to get a metering device in, have room for one cell. On this one, it, on top of all, sits in a very, very stupid place. It sits on the bottom of the scrubber. It's actually where most moisture and water actually collects. It's simply stupid. And second, you wouldn't want to rely on that. The second thing is I only have one gas, only oxygen. So what should happen? As I said before, normally I'm around 80%. If I stay to my 6 meter limit, nothing can happen. Yes, theoretically you can also go hypoxic with an oxygen rebreather, but the circumstances to reach this are, that's very, very, very theoretical stuff, and it's not going to happen on a normal dive. And I don't want to go into this in detail now. But fact is, if you know what the machine's doing, if you understand how an oxygen rebreather works and what happens in your body, you definitely don't need an additional device showing you the oxygen content in the loop. So it also would take a lot of the simplicity away. It's another thing that can go wrong, that can break, another access to the loop where things can leak. So no, you don't need it. And I don't want it. Next thing is just have my all the questions pinned underneath the camera. That's why I'm trying to read. Why accept the limit, or why take the limit? Yeah, a few people ask, like, why would you want to dive an oxygen rebreather that limits you to 6 meters? Honestly spoken, if today I would have to make a decision, there's only one type of diving I can do for the rest of my life. Deep technical mixed gas, recreational scuba, this, that, I would pick the oxygen rebreather. For me, it's the purest, nicest way to be underwater. Absolutely no sound, a fish amongst fish. I can't describe it in another way. For me, it's the most satisfying way of diving of all these things. And I mean, the more simple the unit is, the more enjoyable it is. And yeah, it's hard to describe. You have to check it out. It's for me, that's the thing. I mean, I love photography. I love taking videos on the water. With an oxygen rebreather, obviously, you're way less disturbing to the creatures around you. And the limit to 6 meters for me is no big issue. Yeah, of course, I love wrecks, I love caves, etc., etc. I've done all of that, and obviously I enjoy doing it, and obviously I don't have that limit to only take this one unit. But for me, one of the most beautiful things, I put this thing on my kayak, go somewhere where nobody else is diving, jump in the water, enjoy nature, pull my kayak or put it on anchor or whatever, and that's the ultimate freedom for me. But of course, that's me. So if that may make sense to a lot of you, but it also may not make any sense at all to a lot of you. So the question was why I do it. That's the reason. If you have a chance, check it out. I guess you'll love it. Especially if you love nature, you love fish, you love exploring and watching nature. This is the ultimate unit. Yeah, the modification detail. A lot of people said on the video it was not clear what I did. If I can show that again, yes, of course. Originally, the gas from the first stage came, I don't have the part here, but anyway, came to this box where the mass flow actually bleeds into the counterlung, which sat here. And what I did is, I took that box off, I took a regular first stage, and I made this part. And this part is basically an elbow. I can show you, it's the same part where the loop, actually the hose from the loop goes on. It's the same part. I just had a spare flying around. And it's just a plastic elbow basically. And what I did is, I made an adapter on the lathe that I screwed in there where the intermediate pressure hose from my second stage goes. That's it. And obviously it's not directly connected, but it goes through this manual valve, so I don't have constant gas bleeding into my system, but the gas goes into this manual injection valve, and when I press the button, I have gas going into the lung. So it's a manual addition of gas into the loop. That's it. So the only thing I actually made was this little block of plastic that sits inside, that's actually glued in with epoxy. Put a thread in that, put a 3/8 inch fitting in there where I put the hose on. Very, very simple, very basic, can be done by anybody. Very, very simple. And I didn't have to modify the rebreather. I didn't have to cut any additional holes or whatever. So it's still a normal Dräger ray unit, and I mean theoretically I can just put the original parts on and dive it as it was. So that was, as I said before, an important part for me, that I do not destroy the unit or modify it in a way that I cannot bring it back to original. Okay, yeah, some people said the tank seems to be very, very big, and on the oxygen rebreather it seems too big for an oxygen rebreather. Well, yeah, of course I could dive the unit with a 2-liter tank or a 1-liter tank, but first of all, the mounting strap of the rebreather is made for a 5-liter tank, so the ray came with a 5-liter tank, so that fits nice and easy. Also the diameter, the entire setup is made for a 5-liter tank. And I do two things here that I wouldn't do with a normal oxygen rebreather. First is I have a buoyancy compensator, and I obviously feed it from that bottle, and I have the open circuit bailout, which on a normal oxygen rebreather I don't have, so I have to carry something additionally. I always recommend the spare air for an emergency sink, whatever, which in that case I don't need. I have the possibility to take my second stage that I added there, that I have around my neck, and that way, if something goes wrong, if I get water in the loop or whatever, or caustic cocktail, lime doesn't work, whatever, I can simply switch to open circuit and make an ascent. So obviously I want to have a bit more gas volume to support these two things instead of a 1 or a 2-liter bottle and then carry something additionally. It's built in, so that's why I still use the 5-liter bottle. And then the last question was, is it clever to use pure oxygen as a bailout gas? What happens if you go too deep? Well, if I go too deep, I obviously did something very, very wrong. And while this may be an idea, I mean, the question came from somebody that did an oxygen rebreather course with me, and we talked about that in the course. And obviously, if you take a normal oxygen rebreather and you dive it in a wetsuit, your buoyancy compensation is the counterlog of the oxygen rebreather. And if there's a couple of scenarios where you actually theoretically can find yourself too deep, and then the last thing you want to do is put more oxygen in that loop to go up, because obviously you put more fresh oxygen in, so you raise the PO2 and you get yourself into more trouble. So obviously you want to bail out, take your spare, whatever you use as bailout, go on air and then go into shallow water. So with this unit that's not the case, because I even have a buoyancy compensator, so I don't have to put additional stress on me like kicking hard to go back up or something like that. I can simply press the button and inflate my BCD. So going too deep with this unit is basically not possible unless you're a complete jerk. And if you dive a rebreather, you shouldn't be one of those, but you should be a pretty confident diver and have your skills together. So yeah, there's no need for another gas as a bailout, because going too deep is basically no option with this thing. Alright, I hope this answered all the questions. If you have more, put them in the comment section, drop me mails, whatever. I'm super happy to answer them. Otherwise, as soon as this corona nonsense allows us, I'll get the baby in the water and show you how it works. And I will work on these other rebreather videos if you guys are interested in this, and present them over the next couple of weeks. Other than that, I would be happy if you give us thumbs up. If you haven't, please subscribe to the channel. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.